It's all about the deal at Brunswick Auto Mart. Save big this month with deals like this. Don't miss the Make This the Summer event and lease a 2022 Ram 1500 Bighorn Quad Cab Night Edition 4x4 with 20-inch blackout wheels for just $375 a month. Or lease a 2022 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab for just $397 a month. Brunswick Auto Mart. Car buying made truly simple.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another Believeland Prep Interview. Tonight, I have with me the head coach of the University School Preppers, Ben Malbasa. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing well, Kevin. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. So let's talk about how you got into coaching. A little birdie told me that you actually started out coaching basketball. So how did you end up getting into football?
So I was very fortunate. I had some coaches when I was both a student and a young coach who really took an interest in me. One of them is the head football coach at St. Edward, who was actually our basketball coach in high school, Tom Lombardo.
Yep.
And Coach was instrumental in my life. I managed basketball for Coach Lombardo. I was not good enough to play. And he treated me so well, asked me to kind of be a student assistant coach. He was very young at the time. We had a very close relationship. And a few years later, I was at Ohio State, and he didn't have a JV coach. So I transferred to John Carroll to start coaching JV basketball. Pretty soon was doing football. And again, got to be around some incredible people. Jim Stevens, longtime head coach at University School before me. Jim Garrett, who was our head coach here before Jim. And then also, Cliff Faust, who was a legend, who helped me out a lot as a young coach.
That's awesome. So I know with your football coaching career, you've made a few stops. How did you end up at university?
Well, it's one of those mama calls, you go home kind of deals. Whether mama really wanted it or not, who knows?
Right.
Whether mama's happy she called home, that's a good question. But it's certainly been really awesome to be at my alma mater and have the opportunity to help make certain football strong. We're the oldest football program in the state of Ohio, Kevin.
Wow.
This is the 133rd team in our history. And, it's really cool in a time when, a lot of programs have had numbers struggle. We kind of bottomed out a while ago, and, our numbers are strong. We're playing 3 levels of football, all those kind of things. So it's exciting to be able to do that for a place I love a great deal.
So how many years have you been coaching football total?
So this is I did the math on this a while ago. This is my 20th year as a football coach. I had this math and then I forgot it. It's my 15th year as a head coach.
Okay. So any coaches along the way that have kind of influenced you that you kind of put into your coaching style?
Well, certainly. And I mentioned, a few already. Tom Lombardo had a huge influence on me and still does. Very fortunate to work for Jim Stevens, my predecessor here, and who's frankly one of the just best technical coaches I've ever been around, and an incredible motivator. His ability to connect with young people was just unprecedented, and is. He's coaching at Case and has an incredible effect there. Got to spend a year at Case with Greg Debelak. That was incredible. He's an outstanding coach. I learned a lot of football that way. The year that I helped out at Case, and I just can't even begin to add. I mean, Jim Garrett as a young coach, Cliff Faust, who to this day, I think about Cliff every day. He was an assistant coach. He was 80 years old, and I was coaching freshman football.
Wow.
And, his belief that there was always something to learn and always something to get better at. And you meet some coaches who at 40 decide they know it all and don't change. And here he was at 80, still learning every day, thinking about how to defend the zone read. And I think that was a real inspiration to me in everything I've experienced. And, all those people have one thing in common. They love helping young people grow up.
Right. That's great.
That's what defines it.
So what do you like most about coaching at the high school level?
Well, look, coaching and football. So there's 2 elements here, right? I love coaching because, let's face it, we're competitive people. We enjoy it, and we get the opportunity to help a young person do something that he didn't think he could do. And that's true in any teaching or coaching endeavor, that ability to take a young man, take him as far along as he can possibly go, and farther than he thought when he started. I think there's an element of football, though, that's especially valuable. Here's the reality. I'm very fortunate to coach at a great school where we have a lot of resources. And some people might say, oh, football is far more valuable in other places. And I'd actually argue in my venue, it might be more valuable, because so many times my guys, they're bright students. If they just work hard, they get a good grade. No offense to any of other sports. If our very talented lacrosse program listens to their excellent coach, works hard, they're going to play in the regional championship most years. Okay? In football, we're in such a highly competitive sport that everybody works hard. And so you're going to run up against people who have just as many resources, just as much talent as you, maybe more talent. You're going to get knocked down. You've got to get up. And sometimes you're going to lose, and you're going to have to figure out, okay, wait a second. But coach told me to do this, and I did everything I was supposed to do. I got to work a little harder. And how do I work harder at margins, right? Because, hey, my football team shows up at 6:30, 4 days a week in the summer. We're here every night. We do all of the work. They're here on Saturday mornings after a game. Guess what? So's Gilmore this week. So's Mogador next week. The programs that you really care about beating do the same thing. So now you've got to be better at the margins.
Definitely. So how would you describe your coaching style?
I'm a little intense. That may come across in a couple minutes of an interview. Look, one thing I think is you have to be yourself. And the reality is I burn hot. And my guys know it. And they know that I believe in that, and that I also let them burn hot too. And so, hey, at practice, I'm loud, I'm intense. I can be, constant. As you can tell, I talk fast. I talk a lot. But at the same time, I think my guys also have always known, like, hey, he's there for us anytime I need him. And I want my guys to know that, hey, I have their backs. And the one thing they also know is if it doesn't go well in a game, the person who takes blame is always me. And so, I may be all in their case at practice, but when something goes wrong on game day, not your fault, my fault for putting you there. My fault for how we executed. And so that's the way I try to operate. Again, ultimately it's about helping young people grow up. And part of growing up is figuring out what's your personality and how do you best succeed with that personality. So.
Very good. So you mentioned getting knocked down and getting picked back up. So how do you keep the boys from getting down after a tough loss?
Well, yes, it's a great question. And the reality is, I think maybe more important to this year's team, how do you get up after a tough 2-year stretch for us? We're a program that's a very proud program. I have a coaching staff that's had a lot of success, players who expect to win. And then all of a sudden we had 2 years where it didn't happen. And you know what? We didn't quit working those 2 years. They were great young men, and we had some bad breaks and some, you can find all of the reasons why. And suddenly we didn't have that success. And I loved the fact that our seniors coming up understood, hey, we're not that far away. There are some things we can do to tighten things up and be a little bit more accountable to each other. And coach, you can help us hold each other accountable to get to where we want to be. And I said after the Shaw game, I said, hey, look, we're not where we want to be yet. We're not where we're going to be, but thank God we're not where we were. And we've come a long ways as a football team. And I think ultimately, hey, keep coaching, right? Hey, we're going to coach this mistake. If we make this mistake again, we're going to keep coaching that it's a mistake. You have to watch the film. You have to make the improvement scripts. You have to set goals for your guys every week of how to get better. I think that's really important when things go badly. when we lost to South Range, I think the most frustrating thing was here was a game that we had some chances in. And instead we walk off and it's 42-14 after being 21-14 in the third quarter and feeling like we were right there. And even 28-14 with the ball inside the 5. Well, okay. So, hey, we got to bear down, work on our red zone. We got to make sure we execute. We got to figure out a way to start a little bit faster. And we did that. We had a really nice win over, it's always a very good Bay team the next week. But that's a credit to our guys. I think coaches, in general, we're going to try to keep correcting and keep coaching.
So talk about your team for a little bit. I know Ryan Pattison was one of our players of the week a few weeks ago. So you can talk about him, and are there any other standout players we should look out for the rest of the season?
We've had, and obviously Ryan's gotten a lot of press, and Brian Kellen, who's in my view, as good a receiver as you can have at the high school level, obviously get a ton of the accolades. When I look at our team, I look at the play we're getting on the defensive line, from Sammy Martin, who's a two-way player, a tight end and defensive end, Lex Kekik, who splits time with him at tight end and plays nose, and Chris Jackson, who's playing defensive end and left tackle. You have 3 guys who have been physical forces in every game we've played. When you can disrupt the run game with 3 players, it allows you to be very flexible on the back end. And so, I could praise a lot of guys, but when I think of a unit and players who've really affected the game, and we have good tight ends because of it too, they're outstanding football players. You got a great tight end, it changes the way you play football. And so I think those guys, and then again, obviously an explosive left tackle, even on offense, and Chris, they've made a huge difference for us this year.
Okay. So first half, you had a pretty good start, 4-1. What's the goal second half of the season?
Well, I may be cliche. Our goal is this week, and it's to go 1-0 this week. We have a rivalry game this week against a very talented Gilmore team. They're ranked 8th in the state. It's a very well coached team. I've known Coach Zagorski since he was a player at Case, when I was a young coach at Case. And there's not a brighter football mind around than Coach. So, our guys are a little bit at a disadvantage already this week because he's outstanding. And, I feel like, hey, our job is to get ready for this week. And as I told them, it's a huge week. And at 4:30 on Saturday, it's going to be over. Win or lose. And then the next week, we got another huge one, and then another huge one. And that's the beauty of being 4-1, is all of a sudden all these games matter.
Right.
And that's a great place to be. So, obviously we want to win out every game we play. But this week is special because it's right up the street. And we know all these guys.
Yep. So Saturday, you mentioned you've got the rivalry game with Gilmore. It's your homecoming. What do you think the atmosphere is going to be like?
Well, frankly, there's a Saturday afternoon is not the ideal atmosphere for a high school football game.
Right.
And let's just be honest. But they're very good and we're very good. It will be a huge crowd. I think there is a very good chance. We expect it'll be the biggest crowd we've had in at least 25 years.
Wow.
Ball game. Part of it is just you combine homecoming with the fact that we have a homecoming opponent who's a local rival and they're really good. And we're talented, and that hopefully we've become a pretty good team. So I'm pretty excited. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere. It's been one of the best starts to a school year I can remember, just in terms of the way our seniors are in the building. So it's pretty exciting to think about what Saturday is going to be like.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate you coming on and taking a few minutes out of your day to spend a few minutes with us, and wish you the best of luck this Saturday versus Gilmore and the rest of the season.
Thanks, Kevin, for all you do. Appreciate the coverage. Have a great day.
You too.